Hi everybody! So today's video is going to be my full coverage, glamorous, long wearing complexion routine. I am really excited to show you guys. Some of you may have seen me do this in videos a while ago, but I thought it would be nice to have an updated list of products and steps and things like that. A lot of the products I'm using for my base are from the drugstore too, so I thought you guys would enjoy that. And we're gonna start off with foundation. I actually already did my skincare, moisturized my skin a few hours ago. We're into the afternoon now, but I'm not going to apply a primer. That might be surprising if you are thinking of long wearing makeup. That's something that you have to have. Personally, for me and my skin type, which is normal to oily, I don't really feel like I need a primer, and the products I'm going to show you today and the way I apply them make me not need a primer. Make me feel like using a primer doesn't make a change in my products. So keep that in mind. If you are super oily, then you may want an oil control primer if you feel like your oils come through nonstop throughout the day. Or if you're very dry, you might want to use a hydrating primer just to, quench your skin and give it an extra oomph of hydration. So that's up to you and your skin type, but for me, I don't use one. We are going to start with foundation, and foundation that I have been loving for seriously years, and that I've talked about before, and I just won't stop talking about it honestly, is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless Foundation. So this is like a $9 foundation. I get asked constantly what foundation I'm wearing when I have this foundation on. It is matte, but not too dry. It is very long wearing, and it is medium to full, very buildable coverage. I love how this looks on my skin. I love how it covers absolutely everything I want it to cover, but it's not too heavy. And I love how it wears. I mean, there's nothing bad that I can say about this foundation. And a high-end alternative that I do want to mention, because I do ride or die for it, is the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I actually wore it on my wedding day, and I have loved this actually even longer than this Maybelline Fit Me foundation. So if you're looking for a high-end alternative, I definitely recommend this one. But on a day-to-day basis, I tend to use less expensive products if I can, and like I said, this is pretty inexpensive foundation. So I do have to go in with two shades because neither of these match me perfectly. So I'm just gonna pour them out and mix them on the back of this little palette. Okay, now next is sort of optional, but I really like doing this when I have the time to do it. I like to take a brush. My absolute favorite foundation brush, probably ever, is from Rare Beauty. This is from Sephora. Great foundation brush. I love the slightly rounded top. I love the angle. I love the texture of this. This is just awesome. So I will go into the palette. I'll take some of the foundation and I'll start applying this. And you'll see that it is darker than my actual face, but my body, especially like my arms and my chest, have a lot more of a tan. I am very strict about putting sunscreen on my face constantly. So that's that. I do also like the brush for dragging it down my neck a little bit. I don't go all the way down, but I do want to make sure that it matches and that it looks seamless. So I bring it across my ear a little bit and do a combination kind of this swiping, and then also you'll see me stippling as well. Okay, so that's what this is looking like so far. I want you to notice that I did not put it that far under my eyes. I only went up to about here because I'm going to be using concealer, and I just don't see the need to use both a layer of foundation and a layer of concealer under my eyes. The other thing is, I mentioned that I don't always do this and it is optional. And what I mean by that is Sometimes I will go in directly into the foundation and apply my entire face with a beauty sponge, but sometimes I really do like to use this brush first and then take a dampened beauty sponge and just go over my skin, especially like where I get creases right here, to pick up any extra product. Now, I'm not gonna go over where my blemishes are because I want there to be maximum coverage. I don't wanna pick up any of the foundation. So I kind of go around those, but I just do like a light bouncing over the rest of my face just to make sure that there's not a huge amount of foundation just sitting there where it doesn't need to be. So you can see this was a perfectly clean sponge, brand new actually, and I did pick up some foundation that would have otherwise just been sitting on my skin. I actually saw, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I saw Bailey Sarian, or I've seen Bailey Sarian, who's such a great YouTuber. Definitely go follow her channel if you don't. But when she does her makeup, she often uses a brush first and then goes in with a sponge. And so that's why I started doing it. And I do like it, especially when I have the time to. As far as the product goes, you can see that covered just about everything. I mean, my melasma is pretty dark, and I probably could layer more foundation right here if you're looking really closely, as well as on this cheekbone. My melasma is pretty pigmented. Loving my life, by the way, but I don't feel like I absolutely need to. Like, I think for a normal person that's looking at me, they're not gonna be like, cute melasma. So I can see it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. If you wanted to though, you could definitely build up this foundation even more. I just don't want the extra product sitting on my skin. Okay, so next, we're not gonna set anything yet. We are going to go in with concealer. I have a couple of concealers I wanna mention just as options, but they are both from the drugstore. My absolute favorite concealer, I can't find a reason to not always have this in my collection. It's that freaking good. Is from Milani. This is the Conceal and Perfect Longwear Concealer. I tend to always get this lightest shade, which is 110 Nude Ivory, because I like a very highlighted under eye. The other one from the drugstore though that I've tried for the past few months is from CoverGirl. I heard some good things about this and I do agree. It's the True Blend Undercover Concealer. I have a couple shades of this and it's also very good. I do switch in between these, no rhyme or reason, but if I absolutely had to pick a favorite, it would be this one. They both, however, are very similar in coverage. They're both medium to full coverage. Very creamy, not drying, not cakey, very blendable. I think the only reason why I tend to lean a little closer to Milani is because it is just like a touch creamier. But truly I can go in between the two and I don't care. So we're gonna go ahead in with this now. Okay, so for placement, notice I did not go all the way up to my tear duct or all the way up to my lash line. I will be blending the concealer up in that area already with my sponge, so I don't need to start off that high. I also don't dip back in and get more product. I use one side of the doe foot for one side and the other side, and it's plenty. So that's the amount I'm gonna use. I am gonna go directly with the beauty sponge to blend this out. And you can see like it spreads, so I don't need to put it that high up. I'll just push up the product. And as I mentioned, this is lighter, but once I put powder and everything else on, I do like how it looks. So you can definitely go with something closer to your skin tone if that's what you like. Just like that, completely blended out. No dark circles, very smooth, very creamy looking, even hydrated, I would say. I will say I typically do with this concealer, I do one eye at a time because it will set a little bit and I don't want the stripes of the concealer to set into my skin without me having a chance to blend it out. So just a little tip is I typically would work one eye at a time. By the way, the sponge that I have been using for months that I love, and that is the cheapest thing I've ever bought, probably ever for makeup, is this AOA Studio Paw Paw Wonder Blender. This is $1.55. Now, this comes from China, from an online website. I literally buy like 10 of these at a time, and they last. They are soft. They do not, like I said, they last. They don't rip apart very easily. They are very, very good at blending out any liquid products. I mean, what more can you say about a sponge besides I like it, it works well, I keep buying it? That's this. I truly do love it. I'm going to leave everything for a moment, and you will, or you might, start to notice that my under eyes start to crease a little bit because nothing is set. That's okay for now. I'm just going to leave it. I just want you to know, so if you're looking at that like, oh my God, it's so creasy, we are gonna set everything, just not right this second. So next, I am going to do a step that I never thought I would ever do, which is actually using cream products. I find that when especially for Glam, now I don't do, just know, for like work, I don't necessarily layer my products, but for like a night out, if I want truly glamorous complexion, I love to layer a cream and a powder, and I'm talking about a cream bronzer and a powder bronzer. One of the cream bronzers that I love is from Milk Makeup. This is the shade Baked. They have a couple shades of this. I love this formula. It's so good. It is so blendable, very, very, very easy to work with. I love the shade of it for me, and I mean, it just works. Even if I set my under eyes right now and I went in with this, it would still work. Even like with some powder, like overlay, it still blends out so nicely. That's so impressive to me. Any cream that can work with powder even just to a little extent is impressive. So I go ahead and just apply this directly onto my skin. Nothing that artistic about it. One of the other things I love about this is that I can apply it to my whole face and blend, like take my time blending, because it doesn't set into the skin until you blend it. Okay, so those are the places I typically put it. I know some people do like their jawline. I don't know. For some reason, I just don't do that. Then I go ahead and I take this brush. Now, unfortunately, this isn't available anymore. This is from Morphe. This is their G1. They don't have this like gunmetal collection. But if you just take a look at it, it's kind of like a smaller foundation brush with a rounded top. It's pretty densely packed. You can find brushes like this from 1,000 different brands, high-end, and I'm sure from Morphe as well. I just had this in my collection and I started using it for this, and now I really do like it. But this is how I'm blending it. I'm not swiping for sure. With this, I am doing pretty much exclusively stippling motion. Look at how that blends out. So effortless and stunning. It'd be so pretty if I didn't set this too, because you see how because it's a cream, it gives like a creamy glow to your skin. But for long wearing, full, like weatherproof makeup basically, I do want to set everything with powder. So that is the cream bronzer. I know I have no eyebrows. We'll get to that at some point. All right, so now is when I'm going to set my under eyes. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my sponge and go right underneath, specifically where those little creases are, and pat out the creases. Once we have a smooth concealer under eye, I am now going to go in and set. the powder that I use and will always probably use is from Maybelline again, their Fit Me line again. This is their loose finishing powder. I like the very lightest shade, which is 05 Fair, because it brightens my under eye. It's actually quite light, but when we dust everything away, it isn't as scary as it looks when I first apply it. So I have quite a bit in the top here. I go in with the same sponge. I get, you know, somewhat generous amount. I don't, you know, try to pack it in too much. I just dip it in a couple times. And then I will go right on the under eye and even the side of my nose here. And see how I'm going back and forth? I'm not just going this way, I'm not just going this way. There is excess powder there, so we will press that in, but I do want to use this as a baking process, basically. This is the way that I get my concealer to look absolutely flawless all day long. Okay, so that's what it looks like right now. One thing I do want to mention is something I think about all the time, and especially when I get a compliment on like, oh, what concealer do you use? I think people who aren't into makeup don't realize that, yes, I can tell you what concealer I use and you can go out and buy it and use it, but if you don't use it the way I use it, if you don't apply it the way I apply it, if you don't use the powder on top with the amount of powder that I use, like if you don't do all those steps, you're not gonna get a similar look. And I think that something also is when I've shown people or done my makeup in front of people before, or even when I've done makeup on clients, one of the comments that is very often said is like, oh my God, I would have never used that much product. Like I use so much less, which is totally your prerogative. You don't have to do everything that I do. But if you're looking at my under eye, so specific, and you like how it looks, this is how I'm getting it there, and you have to use the same amount of product, the same technique. You have to use maybe not this exact sponge, but a damp and beauty sponge, you know, things like that. So just might be obvious, but I just want you to keep that in mind. Okay, so moving on to the rest of the face for setting. I am going to first go in, this is different than what I have typically done, with a powder bronzer. And what I mean is my next step would typically be to use a different loose powder, just different color at least, that matches the rest of my face and apply that everywhere and then go in with a powder bronzer. I find that that's unnecessary because if the bronzer is powder, then let that powder set the spots where I'm gonna put bronzer, which is a lot of spots. So does that make sense? I am going to like set my part of my face with bronzer and then I'll set the rest of my face with a powder. So I'm not doing powder on powder on powder on powder. So the bronzer that I love and that I just can't get away from, I always showcase this bronzer, is from MAC. It is the shade Give Me Sun. I love this if you love a warm bronzer. And I'm going to take some of it. And because this is not set right here, I am going to stipple this on. Once this part is set, and now it is because I've put all that powder down, I can go and be a little bit more haphazard and, you know, kind of do this blending motion. But initially on application, on my forehead too, I'm going to stipple it. So yes, we are depositing color and bronzing up, warming up our skin, but we're also setting these areas. This bronzer is just so foolproof. Like it never looks cakey. It never looks muddy. It never looks patchy or doesn't blend right. Like it always looks exactly the way I want it to look. Okay, so bronzer is done. Could add more at some point, but that's typically at the very end. So then I'm gonna go in for the rest of my face, like especially my nose, my smile lines, my chin. I do want to set that with powder, but I don't necessarily want a bronzer on those areas. I'm just gonna go in with actually still the Fit Me powder. This is just a different shade. This is the shade Light Medium 20. This is kind of dark for me, to be honest. So I'm gonna use a light hand, but I'm just gonna take some on a fluffy brush. This is actually a Real Techniques blush brush. And I'm just going to dust this, like pat this on any area that I have not set yet. This powder is so like smoothing and perfecting. I don't know why anyone buys any other powder. Now, sometimes I leave it just like that, and that will be very long wearing. All of the cream that was on my face has now been set down with a powder. I am definitely good to go. However, if you really want to maximize the long wear of your makeup, I would take my sponge, go into that powder, and put a healthy layer on my nose and any area maybe on my blemishes that I really want to make sure nothing moves off of that. My smile lines that will crease. And for me personally, that's about it as far as where I would concentrate that powder. My forehead's fine, like I don't need to do that. So that is that. While we are waiting for that to set in, I will typically go in and do my brows. So I'm gonna do that now off camera and I'll come back and we will continue. Okay, I'm back. I have some brows. I look a little bit more normal. I am going to go in, as you can see, I still, especially on my nose, have powder just kind of sitting there. I am now going to go in back with that sponge and gently press that all the way in until you cannot see it anymore, like sitting on the surface of my skin. Already, it's better. Another option is to take that fluffy brush and just dust it away, but I'm telling you, pressing that extra powder in, especially if you're oily, is a huge benefit for long wearing makeup. I'm even gonna do that with my under eye powder. I typically, in the past at least, would take a brush and try to dust away any excess, but then I didn't love the effect as much as I did if I just pressed it in. I feel like you maintain your full coverage. Like this Fit Me powder, at least, I can't speak for other powders really, but this Fit Me powder does have some coverage to it. And do you see like how smooth and flawless my skin looks? Okay, I shouldn't say flawless because like there is some texture, but as far as how it looked before, it's looking pretty dang like matte and porcelain looking. And that has to do with the liquid products we used, but it has a lot to do with the powder and the way that we apply the powder. Okay, went ahead and finished my eye look too, just so you guys could see more of the finished look. We are going to continue on with blush now. I'm going to do similar to what I did with the bronzer, which is layering a cream and powder blush. I am going to start off with the Melt Cosmetics Cream Blush Light in the shade Polished. This is really, really pretty, like NARS Orgasm to have wanted to be. Like what NARS Orgasm wanted to be. I think this is so much better though, and my favorite thing about the cream blushes that Melt came out with is their type of formula that can be used on top of powder. So you saw we set our whole face, we used powder bronzer. Typically that would be scary to now go in with a cream product, but these work great. I would love for them, I'm just thinking about this, to come out with cream highlights in this same formula. That would be really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm going to use this Precise blush brush from Smashbox. It's not like my favorite brush in the entire world, but I'm gonna use it. So I got some on here and I'm gonna go ahead and start stippling. Once again, definitely do not want to swipe your skin around. You're gonna disrupt your coverage. You're going to mess up the powder, mess up all of the blending that you already did. So I do just want to stipple that on. And you can see how pretty it does bring life back into the face because our face was completely matte. But I kind of leave it like that. Do the other side. Then I am going to go in with a little bit more of a subdued shade powder blush. You can definitely do like two similar colors, but I don't know. I like to kind of mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna use this brand new blush from Makeup by Mario. Actually, this is my first Makeup by Mario product ever. That's so cool. This is in the shade Desert Rose. So definitely way more, again, subdued, just like slightly dusty rose mauve color, which doesn't match this, but I think they might be good together to like when they're mixed. So I'm taking a different brush. This is actually a good one from Morphe. This is the E4 brush, and I'm just gonna apply this on top. Now, this looks like a lot of blush because it's a lot of blush. I love a lot of blush. Like it's my favorite makeup product. I always am heavy-handed with it, and I don't make any apologies for it. So I'm just setting that cream blush, and it actually didn't change the color as much as I thought it would. It just kind of like made it a little more pink versus like coral, but I like it. I like how it looks. It's not looking cakey or like patched up or anything. And the important thing is too, is going to last. I'm going to get home at the end of the night and still see my blush, which is what I want. Now, if I had a cream highlight that I felt like looked good on top of powder, I would now do that same method. I would use a cream highlight and then a regular powder highlight. However, I don't actually have any cream highlights in my collection yet that I feel like work on top of powder. So I'm just gonna go in with powder. But one thing I like to do, if you don't mind the extra step, is I do like to set my face with some sort of setting mist. I typically choose a hydrating one for this step. This is the Dewy Coconut Setting Mist from e.l.f. It's fine. I wouldn't say like, oh my God, guys, go out and get this. It's just fine. But for this step, I just want the powders to diffuse on my skin. I don't want to apply a powder highlight on top of very powdery skin because it's just not gonna pick up the highlight like I want it to. I want the highlight to look creamy on my skin. So I find if I spray my cheeks especially, with a hydrating spray, then if you have your fan, go ahead and fan it down. I mean, my cheeks are soaked right now though. Like I put a generous amount, and that's not going to, I mean, depending on the spray, that's not going to disrupt any of your coverage or anything. If anything, it's just going to like smooth out the texture and settle the powders into your skin, melt the powders into your skin. Okay, so my face is pretty much dried down now. You can see, I mean, that looks so nice on its own. Like I don't even really feel like I need a highlight because that spray, this hydrating spray, brought back the life to my skin. However, we're definitely gonna apply a highlight. So I'm going to go in, I don't know why I thought of this palette today, I just haven't used it in a long time. This is from Hourglass, this is the Ambient Metallic Strobe Lighting Palette. And like I said, I just haven't used it in a while. It is a really good formula. I'm just gonna take maybe a couple of these. Yeah, this is a really good formula. Do you see? God damn it. Like, it doesn't look chunky. It's so glowy though. Wow. I love applying highlight and like getting excited about it because it's an exciting type of product. And then I am gonna go in and I've been liking buffing my highlights in with like a actual buffing motion, not just like dusting it on. Sometimes I go down my nose, sometimes I don't. I am going to do the last step, and then of course I'll have to put on lips. But the last step for the complexion, for the point of this video, is to use a long wearing setting spray. I know some people say that setting sprays are a gimmick. They're frankly not. So they're just not. I definitely, as you saw, have a need for a hydrating spray and one that will make my makeup last all night or all day. The one that I think stands above the rest is truly from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. Party all night, stay all day. I have lived and died for the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray for years. Okay, like I can't even tell you how many bottles of that I've went through. But this year I got this setting spray and I do think it is a little better than the Urban Decay. The Urban Decay is very good. This is just exceptional. What I really love about this is two things. Well, besides the fact that it makes my makeup last longer, what I love about this specific spray is the actual sprayer is a fine mist, but you still feel it on your skin. Like, I don't like those fine mists that you spray and it's like, shh, shh. And it's like, yeah, but is it there? Like, I want my face to feel wet after I spray a setting spray, so I know I really like got every inch of my face. So I do love the spray on this and like the texture of the spray. The other thing I love is that you can feel this like setting your makeup. It's not just like the hydrating one where you spray it, your face feels wet, and then your face gets dry. This actually like sets your makeup, and I personally like that feeling because I just spent like a lot of time, a lot of effort. I used a lot of products. I want my makeup to last, and so I want to know that it's going to. This gives you that feeling. So as you can see, I'm pretty generous with it. My face looks completely wet. The fan is optional, but it's kind of fun and it's inexpensive from Amazon. So I do recommend it if you're high maintenance and willing to get one. Okay, and that is everything. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions at all down below in the comments, or just give me your feedback. I really appreciate it. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'd also love to have you as a subscriber. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye.